Welcome to the site. I'm Sarah Sachs, founder of Write for the Job, and I'm here with Farrah Medrano, Wells Fargo talent acquisition specialist and recruiter extraordinaire. Farrah, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. So this segment is going to be focused on COVID-19 environment. How do you land a job in this crazy environment that we're all trying to navigate? Whether you've recently been laid off or you're just concerned about job security in general. As a recruiter yourself, are you looking at candidates differently right now?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think COVID-19 has made us all in this really unique and surprising environment. And I will say that for the companies who are hiring, like my company is one of them, we definitely had to take a view of our candidates in a different light. And I'm not saying that it's any more negative or positive. I'm just saying like we've understood that people are coming from all different walks of life now, people who had jobs, careers even up until last week are getting let go and furloughed, and they have families and they're looking for a change. So our expectation isn't that you would have the 10 plus years of experience in our company per se, but really looking for those translatable skills or those transferable skills. I think in general for COVID-19, the other thing to keep in mind is don't panic. I do hear that people have frustrations and families on the line and, rents are due. And I'm in the same boat. I'm in the Bay Area and I have rent to pay. So I totally understand it. But I think the people who do well in this environment are people who are just staying calm and confident. And the only reason I say that's because given COVID-19, the interactions of face-to-face interviews aren't happening as much. So a lot of these interviews are being over the phone or sometimes in a video format. And if you're a little bit more twitchy, if you're a little bit more nervous, it's a little bit harder to see who you really are to see if you'd be a good fit for the company. So just relax. When you're talking to a recruiter, we're just human beings. We're normal people just like you. And really just try to tell us, what your experience is and what skills you already have would be great for our role. Not so much that you need this job, not so much that COVID-19 has been like a really rough couple months for you, but like in general, like, do you see yourself making this a career for yourself? And if so, why? And that's all we're looking for.
Yeah. So many people right now are being forced to pivot into different industries, just as you mentioned. And what I'm hearing from you is that regardless of external circumstances, you're still looking for people who want to join your company because your company, Wells Fargo has a mission, has a purpose, and you want people to be aligned with that. How would you say are the best strategies to present yourself and your professional materials to showcase those transferable skills? How does someone go about doing that? Because that's really the key for making a pivot into a completely different industry.
Yeah, so I would say for Wells Fargo specifically, we kind of can use our job expectations as the checklist. So we have usually a section of desired and required qualifications on all of our job openings. And if you read through them, they're pretty basic. Sometimes, 1 year of management, 2 years of detail orientation, like whatever the position requires. And that's what we're looking for. It literally tells you like, this is what we're looking for in a candidate. Please show this on your resume. If I've had people who were able to pitch me being an Eagle Scout and Boy Scout and how they were able to manage a P&L spreadsheet for a company and a couple of other like financial services experience as like their accountability for being able to be honest, trustworthy, on time, and being able to handle large amounts of money. And I was like, that's great. That's more experience than I'd probably get from someone who's even been in retail for 5 years. So as long as you're able to show me what I have on my required qualifications and my desired qualification list, and you're able to explain that to me, we'll definitely move you forward to the next round.
That's fantastic. Keeping on this transferable skills topic, how does someone even go about identifying what industry to go into? Like, for example, communication, having strong communication, that's a really, really valuable skill that a lot of people don't necessarily have. Some people think that they might have it, but they don't. So it's really valuable when you come across it. But strong communication could fit in a million different buckets. So what would your advice be to job seekers who have transferable skills but don't exactly know where to point the compass?
Yeah, so I would say, get your mind out of the box in this case. A lot of people tend to go like, oh, I was a cashier for Walmart, I can only be a cashier for Target. And that's not at all the truth. Again, it's like looking at those experiences. I would say, I have a couple of peers who told me that they really just ran through LinkedIn, opening every single job application they had and reading what the requirements were. And the more you kind of read, the more you find out that, oh, I like the sound of this job, I want to do this job. And the biggest example I had was a team member who was in communications. So she was a service manager, which means she just does operations for the branch. But she really fell in love with diversity and inclusivity. And she really wanted to be the diversity head. And I was just like, well, that's a jump and a half. Like, you don't have experience in human resources. You don't have experience in like leading the business per se. Right. But she was able to read what it took to be in the diversity and inclusion department, get a lower job than she knew existed, and work her way up again. But she would have never known she could even get into diversity and inclusion if she hadn't just read the job description to start with. So I really recommend just going through, reading a bunch of different ones, even ones that you like, there's no way I could do this, because you'd be surprised. Some of them don't require certificates, some of them don't require licensing. It's just a certain personality type and the ability to do the job. So if just don't box yourself in, have some confidence in reading those ads, and apply to anything that you truly are qualified for, that you truly have an interest for.
It just goes to show, if you have the confidence and you feel prepared going into it with your professional materials, with prep for your interview, with your research that you do on the company ahead of time, it's possible.
Very true. And I'd say the same thing happens in my candidate experience as well. Like, I have a lot more males who are, going for jobs that they are probably not as qualified for, and they don't say that in the interview. And I have my female candidates who, if they even apply, they're like, I know I'm not as qualified as your other candidates might be, or they finish the interview with, how strong is the candidate pool for this opening? Like, what are my likelihood to get to the next round? So they always have that little bit of self-doubt there, and especially when it comes to salary, I get that a lot too. They usually lowball themselves. And I have to remind them, like, hey, you have this many amount of years of experience. The worst you can do is ask for too much, and I'll give you the realistic offer. Like, the worst comes to the worst is I'll tell you, like, this is what's real.
So if you want a candidate, you'll keep them around. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I honestly, unless there's like this huge disparity, there's like no way I can make it up. Like, I have entry-level roles that are like $50,000, and I have people applying that want 6 figures. Like, okay, maybe not, But if you were saying that you wanted, 65,000, and I tell you, like, well, actually it's 655 with these bonus, incentives or whatever, if that's doable for you, like, I'm not going to cut your chain there. So it really just depends on where you want to be. And I think a lot of companies too are getting a lot more transparent about compensation, because we don't want to false advertise in any merit. And so most job applications now do have ranges. At least Wells Fargo, we try to keep it very transparent and have job ranges to help out with that conversation as well. That way, what to come to the table asking for.
A lot of companies these days are, massive layoffs. Obviously, salaries are being cut at major companies that you would never imagine having this happen. Is there flexibility with salary offers now during this COVID-19 crisis?
I think there always is room at the table to talk about range. At least in my experience as a recruiter and being in HR management for 2 different companies, there's always a range that we're allowed to fit people in. And if you give us usually your experience, like, people always say, like, well, I have to commute there, and I have to pay the toll, and there's parking fees. Like, those are the candidates that I'm able to fight for. But if you explain to me, like, I have my bachelor's, I have my master's, I have X amount of years of experience in this, those are the things I can work with when I go to negotiate for you to the manager. It's like, hey, like, they have this much experience, like, compared to your team members who, are in this role already, this is what they would be earning, plus I give them starting pay. So always, open the table for negotiation. I would say the worst that's going to happen is we're going to say, like, hey, unfortunately, this is our realistic, number. Are you going to be negotiable for this? Like, that's the worst that's going to happen. Recruiters never go, oh my gosh, that person asked for way too much money, I'm not going to consider you. We don't hold it against you, to be honest. I probably wouldn't even keep track of it mentally by the time you get to an actual offer. Just because I understand, like, you always want to push for more money.
You don't get what you don't ask for.
Exactly. Squeaky wheel gets the wheel.
Last question to wrap up this segment. What piece of advice would you give to job seekers right now that are desperately needing to switch roles and find a new position, what's the best advice you can give them for the current job application climate?
Yeah, I know there's kind of this rush to get another position, but take some time to really fix up your resume. Prep. This is the only time I think in a unique sense where you'll actually have time to practice behavior-based or interview questions before you're interviewing, because you don't have another job that you're multitasking with at the same time. Reach out to the recruiter before you even apply. I have people who reach out to me from all over the world for jobs, and I only hire for the Bay Area, but I do my best to connect them to the right recruiter. So there's no negative. I reach out to the recruiter. I have time to ask them questions like you're asking me right now, Sarah. Like, you can ask these questions to a recruiter. And at the end of the day too, like, I think evaluate a career choice. Like, you may have loved the company you were with and something happened and you've always been thinking like, well, what if I wanted to be this, or what if I wanted that as a career aspiration? Now's the time to explore that. It's a very, very unique and diverse environment, and I can't say, like, it's so like competitive and diversity of thought right now, which means like we're open-minded to having external hires in companies across all major companies. And so I think now is a really great chance if you're like, maybe I did always think about banking before, or maybe I did always want to go into production or project management. Like, maybe now is the space to be able to do that. And hopefully, using the tools of like using your translatable skills, building strong cover letters, making sure your resume is nice and clean, you'll be able to get your foot in the door and try a whole new adventure you never thought you were going to start.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Farrah. We're so lucky to have your advice and expertise on the site. And we'll be back with more segments to give you all the tools that you need for the job hunt.